Yes, he's got it. Here he comes. Way back to baby to sleep and slammed up. And the doctor made a sensational play. Tyler in front, the front, and they score! And Giroux's got it! Goldstein fires! Left and goal! Brady back again. He's got to be 10 and goes forward. And he fumbles the football and the Eagles have it!
We welcome you to the Phillies Sports Hour, the first Phillies Sports Hour in February. We're reaching a year of the show's origin, so pretty cool. But happy February 1st. And, Phillies Sports, we like to serve as a distraction to what is going on, around the world. And really, sports is everybody's big distraction from, real life things. And last night, of course, there was a real life tragedy in Northeast Philadelphia, and all of us here at Philly Sports Reports are heartbroken about the tragic plane crash that occurred last night in the Northeast. And we send our deepest condolences to all of the victims and their loved ones, and our thoughts and prayers go out to all who were affected by last night's horrific catastrophe in Northeast Philadelphia. As we welcome in Matt Brown. And well, there's real life things that go on outside of, sports in Philadelphia. And we are, all of us here at PSR, and as the founder, we are especially grateful that we are able to, report and talk about, our escape from these devastations, which is sports. And, it's cool that we're able to do this and serve as a distraction from what is the real problems in the world.
No, 100%, Ben. Glad to be here. Just really scary thing that happened last night over in the Northeast. It's about 25 minutes away from my house. Literally, I'm right in the same area around it. I've been over there, Cotman had before, right? Literally driven on the road it happened last night. It's a real scary thing. Just thinking about that last night. Thoughts and prayers go out to all the families that were involved. I hope they're doing okay at this tough time. Hope everybody who else was involved, all the people that were around there. There were people that were being taken away to ambulances last night, and the people that lost their homes already today, which is just terrible to hear. I hope everybody's doing okay this morning. It's been a real scary, 12 hours, or more than that, 16 hours now since it happened. I hope everybody's doing okay, and I hope we can have a great hour here talking about sports to hopefully take somebody's mind off it and hope make them feel better.
Yeah, join us for this hour. Take your mind off of that. And, hopefully in about 8 days, a week from around now, hopefully, we are all able to forget about this catastrophe that occurred and this tragedy that occurred last night, and, enjoy a football game for 4 hours, and hopefully, all come together in the streets after the game, and then throughout the week, Wednesday or Thursday, be, hosting a parade in Philadelphia and
100%.
Forget about everything. And let's get it. Let's start talking about. Let's move on. No more. Enough of the somber. Let's provide that distraction and talk about a team that can really get everyone's mind off of what's going on, and the Philadelphia Eagles, who are going to Super Bowl 59. They dominant win over the Commanders last week in the NFC Championship Game, 55-23. You're dressing Rocky, you're taking over the Hard Rock, but you get your what kicked at the Link on Sunday. This was a dominant Eagles victory.
Yeah, it really was. I still can't believe they took over that Hard Rock. That story gets funnier every time. Real quick with that, the funny thing about that whole story is the guy tried to play victim a little bit, saying he was getting bombarded by fans, whatever, and he was trying to promote a charity and like all that reason why he was giving that speech. And then I thought it was funny the Eagles fans were going to that charity website, putting donations in, and in the comments of the donations saying, "Man, this guy's the worst. He's absolutely terrible." I thought that was really funny.
One Eagles fan donated like $55.23 for the score. Which it's a great thing they were doing, but it's just so funny.
I love Philly fans. They do some funny things sometimes. But no, back to the game. No, it was just an absolute great game last weekend. It's one of the most satisfying games. That's what I've been calling it kind of the last week. Most satisfying wins I think I've seen from the Eagles in a long time. I think the big thing that they hit on last week was they pretty much did everything the way they're supposed to do it. And it's crazy just saying that you don't often do that, but in most football games, you don't often hit on every single metric of the box. I would say the only thing they really didn't execute on to their fullest potential was field goals, and I don't really think they were really able to besides the one that they missed, but I'll talk about that in a little bit. But otherwise, I think they really dominated on every course of the football game, running the ball, throwing the ball, knowing when the call plays on offense and on defense, going after the quarterback, the turnover margin. They really just made everything so great together, and they brought it together to make a really good overall game. You saw that on the field this past week or last weekend over the Commanders in a really, really dominant win. It made them really seem like the team to beat, and it's given a lot of people the hope that they really want, especially after, I wouldn't say 2 bad performances in the Rams and the Packers game in the first 2 games of the playoffs, but after those games, there were definitely people that were having doubts about this Eagles team, if they could really go all the way. But I honestly think all those doubts left people's minds after they saw what they did to the Commanders last week.
Yeah, every doubt that was in our minds and, I think everybody's minds around the country were really extinguished by mainly Jalen Hurts. And, after all the backlash he's received over the last year and a half, is he really the guy? He's being carried by Saquon and this amazing defense. Well, he proved everybody wrong. 20 of 28 passes, 246 yards, a 110.1 passer rating, and a touchdown, 3 rushing touchdowns, and no turnovers. He has now thrown 206 consecutive postseason passes without throwing an interception. He's now going to his 2nd Super Bowl. He is the first quarterback to return to the NFL's biggest stage after losing in his first appearance since Jim Kelly did it for the Bills back in the 90s. Hurts is also the first Eagles quarterback to appear in multiple Super Bowls. You don't want to call him elite. You want to call him a game manager. Well, he's going to prove you wrong every single time.
He just keeps winning, man. Like, I really don't know what else you're supposed to say. Like, I know wins aren't really supposed to be a quarterback stat. It's supposed to be a team stat and all that. But people talk about quarterbacks that are able to win. And Jalen Hurts just finds a way to win, man. Whether it's handing the ball to Saquon and making sure that he calls right reads. He has just been able to execute so well. And I thought the best part about this win was when they were on the stage accepting the NFC Conference Championship trophy on stage with Jeffrey Lurie. And then Terry Bradshaw brings over Nick Sirianni. And Bradshaw says, "What a game you guys had." And Sirianni goes, well, "Look at our quarterback. Our quarterback played his butt off. No doubt he was a great game." This whole organization really wants Jalen to succeed. They see the talent that he has, and they see what drives him and the motivation that he brings to the team. And I know it's the Philly media. They like to make stories about how Jalen and Nick don't get along. Jalen's really not that good. The national media does the same thing. Jalen's just a game manager, but he finds a way to win, man. And this postseason and this year, honestly, has really shown me that he can be a lot of different players. He can be a player that really wins you a game and takes advantage of a situation and uses his legs and just is an overall great player. And then he can be a player who can step back and let his playmakers work and let his offensive line, who gives him great looks, help him find receivers and make big plays. So I've been really impressed by Jalen this postseason. He's just taking a whole other level.
He sure has. The first 2 games, obviously not really exactly what you want to see from Jalen Hurts, but it was also his first 2 games playing in 3 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks after his concussion. And now he's out there. I think my biggest thing with him is from last week is he was doing some things we haven't seen him do in a while. He was more trusting his receivers and, throwing them balls and making his receiver make the adjustment and not exclusively giving it to his receiver when they're wide open, but maybe if they're in some tight coverage and you trust that your receiver can make that adjustment, out physical their defender and go up and make the catch. You especially saw it on the A.J. Brown touchdown. He was in the corner of the end zone, really wasn't open, but A.J. Brown made that adjustment and made that catch. The 4th and 5, he kind of saw an out route on 4th down, which we don't always see from the Eagles, which was cool to see, maybe breaking out some new things in the end of the season people aren't expecting. A.J. Brown made the adjustment off his defender on the pass, made the catch, got the 1st down. So a lot of things you're not always seeing from this Eagles offense, you're now seeing different play calls from Kellen Moore, Jalen Hurts trusting his receivers more. That's huge going into, the Super Bowl.
No, yeah. We literally sat here last week on the same show And I talked about my biggest critique I've had with Jalen through the entire postseason because I thought he was playing pretty well for what he's doing. Wasn't turning the ball over, was finding good reads and all that. I think the one thing was I talked about his decision making. His decision making was going to be the thing that make or break this team. We saw it 2 weeks ago against the Rams. His decision making wasn't great. He was taking sacks. He wasn't trusting his receivers really in certain spots and wasn't giving them the balls that they need to get open. This past week, his decision making was so on point. He only had the 2 sacks. One was not his fault, by the way. The offensive line missed a block, and he had a guy screaming right in his face. There's not much he could really do. And the other one was a broken play that he just ran out and just slid down and took the rush, basically a sack. It's unfortunate I had to go down a sack, but he just played so well. His decision making was on point. He made throws that I really haven't seen him make in a while now. He really trusted his guys. And another big hit I really want to give is the first play to Saquon. We're going to talk about Barkley and how big he is because Barkley's so huge. But the first play to Saquon, I want to give Jalen so much credit on that play. If you go back and watch that play, he changes the play twice on that first play. They come out with their first read. He doesn't like it. He changes at the line. He then sees another look. He changes it again. He changed the play twice, almost doesn't get the play off, and they take it to the crib 60 yards, Saquon Barkley in the first round. He 100% changed that play, didn't like what he was seeing on the first play call, and he changed that play on the crack toss. Got beautiful blocks, by the way. Shout out Mailata. He was absolutely destroying everybody on that play, but he knew that he saw something.
Oh, I think we lost Matt. All right, Matt just froze. So we'll hear from Matt in a few minutes. Hopefully he gets that figures out. Just note that. Oh, you back?
I am back. Sorry about that. Right. I'm not sure what happened there. Anyway, as I was saying, that was such a great play by Barkley and great play by Hurts. Just find that play right away. I just like giving him credit on that because his decision making on the play in the entire game was so good, and it was a big reason why I thought they won. He hasn't turned the ball over. His turnovers has been 0 essentially this entire postseason, and it's just been an incredible run by Hurts right now, and he's playing his best football of I think the entire season at the perfect time. We're 8 days away from the Super Bowl, yeah. So it couldn't be better right now for Hurts.
Sure couldn't, and proving everybody wrong last week. I mean, it seems like every time there's a backlash with Jalen Hurts, him and Nick Sirianni aren't getting along. He's a system quarterback, can't takes too many sacks, holding the ball for too long. Every critique that's out there, I feel like the next game he goes out there and gets his fire extinguisher and just bursts it out and says, "All right, screw you. I'm going to go out there and prove you wrong," and just kind of does it. Like he's a bad man, Jalen Hurts.
Oh, he 100% is. And this organization wants to see him win. And I'm happy that they're giving him the keys to be able to do it. He's the guy that can take you to a Super Bowl. He's taken you there twice. And he's the guy that I think can really win you guys a Super Bowl. And he has the supporting cast to do it too.
Yeah, he sure does. And we'll talk about the defense a little bit, how much of a transformation that was. But I think the biggest transformation with this Eagles team this year, Saquon Barkley, first play, 60-yard touchdown. And then, he has 2 more, hat trick in the NFC Championship game. He's going to his first Super Bowl. Is it possible to stop Saquon Barkley? Like, I don't think it's possible.
I don't really know you can stop him. So, as a Penn State fan, I've had the luxury of watching this guy for a decade plus. I remember when he was a little freshman at Penn State, being this guy that just flipped from Rutgers to Penn State, and everybody was like, man, we're going to stick it to Rutgers now with this running back. And he slowly turned into an absolute demon. I remember when he was coming out of school, he was the best running back prospect I've ever seen in my life. His ability to just create plays was so insane. And when he went to the Giants, I was so pissed because I knew I had to root against this guy now for as long as he was there. Thankfully, it didn't last long. He eventually came over to people say the dark side, but for us, the good forces over here. But Barkley has just been absolutely explosive this entire year. you put him with one of the best offensive lines in the league, you obviously are going to see great production. I didn't think it'd be this insane a production, where he's rushing for 2,000 yards, is 30 yards away from, I believe it's the single postseason record.
Yeah, it is. He's at 2,447 yards in the regular and postseason. The record for most combined yards in regular season and postseason is 2,476 when Terrell Davis did it in 1998. So I think it's safe to say Saquon's going to break that record on Sunday.
Oh, 100%. And you don't even have to hear like he played the extra game or whatever. He sat out the last game of the year, but he's just been so explosive. And he's honestly a big difference in the last time the Eagles played and this time. No disrespect to Miles Sanders. Miles Sanders, another Penn State guy. I love Miles Sanders, but Saquon Barkley and Miles Sanders are night and day, the difference between the two of them. It gives you such a big advantage because you could argue he's the best player on either of these teams. And the fact that you have that advantage over a team like the Chiefs, who you know are good because you've seen them play so well over these last couple of years, to have Barkley, and honestly, I don't know if you're able to stop him because every single look that they give Barkley, whether it's stacking the box, multiple linebackers in, bringing corners to the front line, every time you try to do something different, he still takes his 60 yards to the house, 70 yards to the house. He still breaks off big 20-yard runs. They're actually asking you to stack the box because they want you to bring everybody up, have no safeties deep, and the second they get through the front line, they make the right blocks. Barkley breaks a tackle like he did this past week in Washington. There's no one in the middle. And if they do that, he's gone to the house. And it's insane to think you're asking as a rushing team for teams that stack the box, because normally you don't want them to stack the box. You want them to play back so you have the front line open and you're able to pick up however many yards you can. But they're asking you to stack the box. That's how dominant Saquon Barkley has been this year. So I really don't know what you have to do to stop him. But the Chiefs are going to try to do that. I think they're going to try and also bring a blitz and do that. We'll talk about that more later on what I think they're going to do and how we can avoid losing to the Chiefs again. But it's going to be a really hard task for them to stop Barkley. I'd be very shocked if he doesn't dominate this game because he's dominated every single team he's played this year, no matter if they're the Cleveland Browns who were picking second or the Baltimore Ravens who were a big playoff team. They've all been dominated this year.
I want to go back to Jalen Hurts for a second and talk about the blitz that he faced, because Washington was blitzing a good amount on Sunday. It was also a different line for the Eagles, so maybe some miscommunication. You saw Tyrese and Mekhi Becton. Sometimes Landon Dickerson had some miscommunication, and some guys leaked through. Frankie Louvu especially leaked through a few times. We're not going to talk about him jumping over the line like twice, which was pretty ridiculous. And but if you look back, how would you assess Jalen? How he did against the blitz against Washington last week?
Really good, actually. I think he kind of struggled when he first saw it for a few times. And you could kind of see it in his decision-making a little bit because he would struggle to find the open guy. And it kind of got them stuck on the one drive that was big was when they went for the field goal with Elliott when he ended up missing, which I think that was honestly the only mistake the Eagles made all day. Maybe that and the McLaurin touchdown. But other than that, that was kind of the drive where he wasn't doing well against the blitz, and it put them in a tough spot. They ended up going for the field goal instead of going for it because they saw that Hurts was struggling against that blitz. I think they're going to do the same thing the Chiefs, because you saw it last week against Allen. Steve Spagnuolo brought the blitz a lot against Josh Allen. It was a big reason why Josh Allen didn't have time to throw on that last play of the game where, honestly, Kincaid should have caught that ball. I still can't believe he didn't. And we'd be talking about maybe a different matchup this week. But Spags is a really good defensive coordinator. He is very good at adjusting during game, and he's very good at game planning as well, which is a deadly combo because he game plans very well what he thinks you're going to do, and that's not right. He's very good at changing up his game plan and getting his players ready. So I think they're going to continue to bring the blitz Kansas City next week. It was something they did back in the other Super Bowl. It's something that Jalen has struggled a little bit this year. But if they do bring the blitz, Jalen has to be set with his feet, getting ready to throw to his receivers. And that's honestly a big ask in his receiver. Dallas, AJ, and Smitty, and probably Barkley too underneath as well. He's going to have to probably get a couple reps in the Super Bowl. They're going to have to play out of their mind and dominate on the outside, because if they don't, Jalen is just going to struggle. And if Jalen struggles, that's when you're going to get into a little bit of trouble.
Yeah, sure is. So we'll see what goes on with that. We'll dive in more into the matchup with in Super Bowl 59 a little bit later in the show. But back to Barkley. Diverted a little bit from Saquon Barkley there. You know, this might be the best running back season ever. But I think the bigger thing with Barkley is he's just an ultimate team guy and a flat out like winner. Like when Will Shipley had that 70-yard or however long it was where he was trucking down the field, holding the ball like it was a newborn child running down the field. They pan over to Saquon Barkley, and he is freaking out on the sideline, going crazy for Shipley. He runs onto the field after the touchdown for Will Shipley, 7 rushing touchdowns by the Eagles last week, which was absolutely ridiculous. But like Barkley is starting to become the best move that the Eagles have ever made. Best draft pick, best free agent signing, best trade. Like, where are you ranking? Like, is this the best acquisition the Eagles have made in franchise history? It's crazy to say that now after just 18, 19, 20 games with the guy. But, like, it's starting to feel like it.
No, it's 100% the best move the Eagles I think I've ever made free agency. I think it only is behind. Well, I shouldn't say that yet. If he wins a championship, it's 100% number one. It's crazy to say, but I think Nick Foles is technically the number one free agency acquisition because if you don't have Nick Foles, you don't win a Super Bowl that year. But if Saquon Barkley wins you a Super Bowl this year, it will go down as not only the number one Eagles transaction, free agent move, whatever you want to call it, in franchise history. I think it's going to be the number one sports acquisition in the city of Philadelphia of all time. And that's until Bryce Harper wins a World Series. We can hope to God that happens one day, and I hope it does. But if Saquon Barkley ends up leading them to a Super Bowl in year one, it just seems like a great move for the city. It brings someone to the city that this city would love. They love someone who grinds like he does every morning to make sure that he provides for his family and provides for his family not only at home, but his Eagles family, his running backs, and his offense. He is just someone who wants to succeed. And Philadelphia is a sports town that wants to succeed. And you get the best of both worlds with Saquon. He's such a team guy. He's not a me player. He wants to win badly than anybody, but he wants to have fun with his boys and see everybody succeed. And you just see that every week, especially after the Shipley touchdown. He really wanted him to score that big touchdown. I wish he did kind of too, but I understand in that situation, you don't want to fumble, but you just love seeing a guy like Saquon, the personality he brings to the city, and how much everybody just loves to see a guy like him succeed.
Yeah, he's a great human being. And, you mentioned Bryce Harper. Feels like the comparison between them has been floating around a little bit between Bryce Harper and Saquon Barkley. Who is the better acquisition? And I think it's a little hard to compare sports and athletes like that. Baseball is like so much different than football. Both, of course, big team sports, but so many differences there. But like, if you had to make the comparison, who has meant more to their franchise? I mean, you look what Harper did year one, no playoffs. They were in it for most of the year and then kind of fell out in the end. And then you got Saquon Barkley, who's going to the Super Bowl in year one as an Eagle. Of course, Bryce Harper's had crazy moments, the swing of his life. The 2 homers against Orlando Arcia, the walk-off grand slam, and all that stuff. But Saquon Barkley's going to Super Bowl in year one.
No, yeah. I think Bryce has done a little bit more because he's kind of revitalized the Phillies culture around here. For a long time, Phillies culture, if this wasn't around, they just didn't love baseball like a lot of people do. Like I do. I love baseball. I always have. But a lot of people just weren't always into baseball. Football will always be there. The Eagles will always be there for people. They will always be a thing. So it's not that Saquon hasn't done much for the city. He has done so much. He has done so much to revitalize the city, especially after a big collapse last year. But I still think you had to get that edge to Harper. But, man, Saquon Barkley is just – he's provided – it's kind of like been a spark. It was kind of like last year you saw how great they were to begin the year when they were winning, I think, 10 of their first 11. Honestly, should have been 11-0, shouldn't have lost that Jets game last year. But you kind of saw where their locker room was not – I don't know about toxic, but they just – didn't seem to mesh. And Saquon seems to be that guy that just meshes them all together, gives them that spark whenever they need, and just gives them something to look forward to and gives them a reason to just wanting to keep going and wanting to win the Super Bowl. Because they really want to not only win it for him, but they want to win it all, and they know that he can help them so much win this year.
Yeah, he sure can. And, something else that's going to help is when you're plus 10 in the turnover ratio. The Eagles have forced 10 turnovers. They've got 10 takeaways in their first 3 playoff games and have 0 turnovers. 0. 10 to nothing. They're plus 10. I think only like every team that's done that in the playoffs has won the Super Bowl, I think. I don't remember the exact number and how many years that's been on for, but has that been the real key to success? Is all the teams that seem to be winning this postseason are winning the turnover battle. The Eagles haven't even turned the ball over and are forcing, they've forced 4, 2, 4, like they forced so many turnovers. Like, has that really been the key?
No, 100%. Turnovers is always the key for football games. Not turning the ball over and then getting turnovers, vice versa. It's always so huge between teams. A big thing you see is almost every single playoff team this postseason has won mainly because they win the turnover battle. The only one that hasn't was Kansas City last week against Buffalo, and that's because they're Kansas City and they have other ways to win, and they're just really good in January and February. But that's been such a big difference maker, not only for the defense, just getting turnovers and keeping the ball out of opposing teams' hands is big, even if it doesn't result in points. But luckily, the Eagles' offense has been rolling. Saquon Barkley's been rolling. Jalen Hurts hasn't turned the ball over, and they're able to capitalize on that, and which makes the victory like last week possible by dominating the turnover battle and then also having an offense that just keeps scoring. But yeah, turnover battle is so huge. That fact that they have not turned the ball over once this year is insane in my opinion. And the fact that they turned it over or grabbed 10 turnovers, it just made the fact that it seemed like they've been so dominant lately. And it's a great thing to have right now. It's a great thing to be going to the Super Bowl, being able to say that you have not turned the ball over once.
Yeah, going back to the end of the regular season, the Eagles have 15 takeaways and no turnovers in their last 5 games. Really shows you what the fuel has been in the fire for the Philadelphia Eagles this postseason. And you look at the defense last week, of course, you had the turnovers by Zach Bond, Oren Burks. Quinyon Mitchell had another interception to kind of stick a fork into the Washington Commanders. But, of course, Nolan Smith's pressure, Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis got a sack last week. What has been the most impressive point from this defense in these playoffs?
So I think the ability to crowd tackle and just crowd the ball and shutting down run games has been really big. You saw it last week. Brian Robinson was not able to run at all. The thing that they struggled on a little bit is breaking your heart on 3rd and 4th down. They struggled with that with Daniels, but they've struggled with that all year. Turning the ball over is just so great. Getting turnovers is big. But I think a really big key to the Eagles' success this year on defense is getting the most out of their players. We talked about a guy, Nolan Smith, had such a big jump this year. He has jumped into a premier player on the Eagles defense. Jordan Davis has kind of stayed put, but he's still been really good. Jalen Carter has taken an even bigger jump from last year. I didn't even think that was possible, but he's already in the conversation probably for a top 5 player in football on the defensive side of the ball. I would say probably top 20 overall in football. You get guys like Kobe Dean, who was deemed a bust, and nobody thought that he'd really be able to be the signal caller of the defense. He was giving you great time before he went out. Then you have Oren Burks, the backup linebacker. He gets a really good game last week, gets a turnover. You get guys like Zach Bond in their first year, who was a mainly pass rusher, defensive end, barely played outside linebacker, and now he comes in. He's the best outside linebacker this year, a finalist for Defensive Player of the Year. You have 2 rookie cornerbacks who you didn't expect to be playing this well. They take a huge jump. Darius Slay's been really good. Reed Blankenship, C.J. Gardner-Johnson, their whole secondary. The whole team they've gotten the most, I feel like, out of almost everybody on their defense. And I would say the only one is Bryce Huff, which is crazy because you were expecting him to be better. But he still has not been – he's been bad, not the worst, though. But overall, you have just been able to get so much out of your defensive players. And that, I think, goes back to Vic Fangio. He has been a fantastic coordinator. He has done everything right to get this team. I think they struggled a little bit in being up by so much and making sure that they keep games blowouts as they are, not letting teams get back in. But other than that, they have just been so dominant this year on all parts of the defense, and they've really just come together as a group and play such cohesive defense. And you honestly can't get that from many teams. And I honestly think it's been the key reason why they've done it. They've just gotten so much production from everybody. Everybody's come together and played their best football, and they're playing it at the best time of the year right now when they're getting into February for the Super Bowl.
When you look back to the 2022 season and that Super Bowl where they lost to the Chiefs, I saw a graphic of what that defense looked like then. Their front line was Fletcher Cox, Brandon Graham, Javon Hargrave, Linval Joseph, and Donovan Sue, and Hassan Reddick. Their linebacker was TJ Edwards, and then their secondary was Bradbury. Avonte Maddox was in the slot. Who else was back there? You had Marcus Epps at safety. Like, it was just a bunch of like not great. It was a pretty bad secondary looking back at it, and the front seven was pretty old for the Eagles as well. And I don't think that team, they broke down, of course, the end of the game. They're old, they slow, definitely can't chase after Patrick Mahomes. Now there's not a weakness in this defense, which I feel like we may have been saying 2 years ago, but now it's really like this is the number one ranked defense in the NFL. And I feel like I have much more confidence in this defense going in against the Chiefs, who, scored 27 points for the first time this year last week against Buffalo, than I do that 2022 defense.
Yeah, like that 2022 defense, I wouldn't say it was terrible because it wasn't bad. It was still a pretty premier defense.
70 sacks, speaks.
Yeah, no, they were definitely a really good defense. But I think the difference is this team is a more well-rounded defense, whereas the defense as a whole, I would say, is probably number one. And it's been talked about as the best defense in the league. I think they are the best defense in the league. That defense overall, while they have the 70 sacks, that you can see glaring holes that you could take advantage of. This defense is really good all around. It's going to be really hard for the Chiefs to figure out what hole to bust open. I was watching back I've watched back the Super Bowl for the first time ever in full, for the first time ever since I watched the game firsthand. It was really hard, but watching back that game, the big things that they dominated on was running. Javon Hargrave looked terrible in that game. Like you said, their front seven just looked old. They just couldn't get after Mahomes like they did all season. They just couldn't create pressure on him. They couldn't stop the run. And they just allowed, with the secondary that just wasn't playing that well at that time, just take advantage. So I really think that this is a real big step up. And the key that I was saying with that is I think this is a more whole-round defense more than last time. So it's going to be a lot harder for the Chiefs to find a glaring hole in this defense. And I think that's a big reason. Like they're going to have to beat you in a way that you haven't seen all season. Because last time you could say the secondary wasn't good. They targeted certain guys. They did. They targeted Bradbury and Maddox. They went after certain run plays and certain guys like they did on Hargrave. Now, if you want to go after this guy, you got to go after him and then the guy behind him and the guy behind that. The defense is playing well. The secondary is playing fantastic. So they've just been an overall better defense this time around. And I think that will be a big key this time versus the Chiefs.
Yeah. All right. Let's, I want to talk about Nick Sirianni a little bit, who you look back to week 5. I read back my article that I wrote in week 5 about Nick Sirianni and my takeaways from that game against Cleveland. And when he chirped back at the Eagles fans, I was calling for, his head to be chopped off on Broadway. Get this guy out of here. Now he's the first Eagles quarterback to lead his team to multiple Super Bowls. And he has really turned around the culture. Eagles have lost one game since week 4 of this NFL season. I guess it was week 6 against the Browns, but they haven't lost a game since week 4 with Jalen Hurts playing in the entirety of the game. It's Nick Sirianni has become one of the best coaches in the NFL, which, people were calling him get out of here, but
no, I've always thought that he was a great motivator, and you can honestly see it through the way that he motivated his players. And the players bought into what he was trying to feed through them. This thing that he struggled with is he had coordinators that were very good at the start. Jonathan Gannon and Shane Steichen, whether you like to think they were good or not, they're NFL head coaches, and they've been head coaches for 2+ years now. So they're obviously doing something right if franchises believe in them to be their head coaches. So you had really good coordinators that have now turned into head coaches in your first 2 seasons. And, Nick Sirianni is a great motivational guy. He gets the most out of his players. That's how every head coach in the NFL needs to be. That they need to be a guy that is a great motivational guy that can get the most out of his players. On top of that, you can have skills like signal callers and play callers who can call great plays and come up with great plays. not everybody's good at both. There's only one guy in the league, in my opinion, that is good at being a motivational guy that can get the most out of his players and play calling, and that's Andy Reid. And Andy Reid is widely considered the best coach in the NFL. I think he is. Not everybody is great at doing both. Sirianni excels when he is a big motivational guy, and that's what he's great at, and has great coordinators. And last season, you saw when he didn't have great coordinators. Talent can only take you so far, and you saw that last year with the Eagles. The talented guys that they have can only do so much. Eventually, it comes to a point where you need to have great coordinators and great coaching to be able to win games down the stretch, and it didn't happen last year. This year, you bring in Vic Fangio. I think he should win assistant coach of the year. He's been that great. You bring in Kellen Moore. He has revitalized this offense in a way where they know how to change from one way to another, be a running team, and that's helped with the players, but be a running team at times and be a passing team at others, and just making sure that Hurts doesn't make mistakes, which was a big issue last year and a thing they didn't address and during the season with Brian Johnson. But now with Sirianni, he has found his niche. He has found that he needs great coordinators, and that's okay. Some teams need great coordinators to win. You got to be able to find those guys, and he has been really good at finding those coordinators. He can handle the motivation and the CEO type of coach that he is, and he can let his coordinators and his coaches, and obviously be a part of it too. You know, it's not like he's doing nothing. He's doing things, but he can let them take a step back and just be the best that they can be and let his coaches take over. And then he can handle everything else that goes on during the game and outside the game.
And Sirianni's the only big coach that came back after like what happened last year. And who knows where the Eagles are without Nick Sirianni? Like, he was able to reconstruct this team's belief and faith after, last year's crazy collapse. And remember where they lost 6 of their last 7. All of them came in nightmarish fashion, started 10-1, lost and got demolished by Tampa Bay in the wild card round. Everyone wanted Sirianni gone. Now he's going back to the Super Bowl.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember.
You think early this year he was yelling at fans, and now the guy is going back to the Super Bowl, and no coach in Eagles history has done that. He's an incredible leader of men, and he's really showing that here.
No, yeah, they buy into him doing stuff like that. Brandon Graham is number one who says we buy into things that he says and talking crap to people, and they don't care, and they like a coach like that. And I didn't like being the guy that blamed coordinators being bad is the reason why they suck. But I really think that was the case with the coordinators we had last year, Sean Desai and Brian Johnson. I just didn't think they worked out. I think they just took a huge step back for this team with the talent, because they knew they were talented. They just got to put it all together, and they've been able to find coaches that have really worked for this system. And again, not every coach and head coach in the NFL has to be a great play caller and a great motivator. I think there's only one. I think there's Andy Reid is the only one that does it well both. And he's obviously the best coach in the league for a reason. Everybody needs help on the coaching side, and I think Sirianni has found that. He has found the guys that he needs to win games, and he is able to motivate his guys to get the most out of his players.
All right, let's talk about the Super Bowl matchup. How did the Eagles stack up with the Chiefs? Obviously, we saw a few years ago. We talked about it a little bit. The defense was old. Now this defense is much better. When I look at it, the only positions that the Chiefs maybe have an advantage over the Eagles is quarterback, maybe, tight end, maybe, and coaching, maybe. It doesn't feel like a crazy drastic difference between the two. Obviously, what we saw from Jalen Hurts last week, he outplayed Mahomes in that Super Bowl a few years ago. The tight end, Dallas Goedert's been huge for the Eagles in the last 3 games, and he's younger than Travis Kelce, and the drastic it's not that drastic there in coaching. The Eagles have the best defensive coordinator in the NFL. They're rolling with Kellen Moore's offense in what will probably be his final game wearing the midnight green. And Nick Sirianni has these guys rolling, but of course they're going up against Andy Reid. How drastic do you think the difference is at QB, tight end, and coaching? Is there any other positions that the Chiefs may have a bit of an advantage of over the Eagles, other than kicker?
Well, special teams is a big one. I was going to say that, but no, I think they're very subpar in both. I think both our D lines are very good. I think we have the advantage in linebacker and secondary. Secondary is very good for them too. Offensive line, I think we win that, and I think our receivers are better. And same with running back, obviously. But like you said, the big ones are quarterback, tight end, and head coach. Tight end, Kelce, he turned it up this year. As much as he didn't have a great season, but he does turn it up around this time of year. Head coach is a big one. I think in the NFL, you got to have 2 things to win a football game. You got to have a good head coach / good coaching, and you got to have good quarterback play. Kansas City gets both out of them, especially this time of year. They get the best out of Patrick Mahomes. They get the best out of Andy Reid. Like you said, Mahomes could get outbeat. It doesn't mean he's going to lose the game, though. We saw it happen last time where Mahomes got outdueled by Hurts, yet he still somehow won the game. And I think that's because Mahomes just knows that when he has the ball in his hand towards the end of the game, if he's still in it, it's a one-possession game, he knows he still has a chance. And it's a really scary thing to give him the ball back. I've seen this guy with 13 seconds get into field goal range, which I still don't know how he was able to do that. But I've seen him lead so many game-winning drives. I haven't seen a guy been this dominant towards end of games and winning games since Brady. And he's a Super Bowl away from being in that conversation with Brady. I heard he still needs a little bit more, in my opinion, but people think he's right there at only 28 years old, or however old he is. But man, Mahomes, despite Eagles having the advantage in almost every single spot that isn't the three you mentioned, them having the advantage in quarterback, head coach, it trumps almost all that. It gives them such a big advantage in this game. It really just makes it so they feel that they can do whatever they need to do to win, and really feel that as long as they get the ball back with however time they need, they have a chance to win the game. And it's a really scary thing, but the Eagles are really good as a whole, and they got to take advantage of that. Them being good as a whole, they need to take advantage of that and make sure that they don't put themselves in a spot where they can't win the game.
I think my biggest thing is I look at this Chiefs secondary, and the only real guy that's scaring me, not scaring me, but Trent McDuffie. There's nobody else back there that I'm like, oh, could be a problem. I don't even know how big of a problem Trent McDuffie is against AJ Brown and Devontae Smith and Dallas Goedert. Saquon has to roll out. Even Jahan Dotson. If God forbid something does happen with Saquon Barkley, I have all the confidence in the world that Jalen Hurts can throw around this Chiefs secondary, because really, I don't know if I can name a guy outside of Trent McDuffie in that Chiefs secondary.
No, yeah, I really don't know much either. I do need to look at that more, just scout their defense more. But they, despite their struggles despite the names that they don't have on defense and how they're not talked about as a great defense as they once were back in 2022, that was a big reason why they beat us. They had a really good defense. I just still think they're a team that finds a way to win, whether it's super. And again, this go back to Steve Spagnuolo. I think Steve Spagnuolo is such a great coach, and he's a big reason why the Chiefs have been able to stay in a lot of these games, because he gets them to a point where we've been talking about it for the last couple weeks. The Chiefs are a team that they don't even need to score 27 points into a game to win a game. This was the first time last week they scored more than 27 in a game that they needed to win. Every other time, they have not needed to score big games. So they find ways, and they find guys to be able to get through these games and just give Mahomes a chance to end up getting that last drive of the game to end up winning.
Yeah, and they seem to always get some help from the officials, but that's a different conversation for today. All right. Let's talk about Brandon Graham. He could be returning for this game. They opened his practice window. He hasn't played since week 12 against the Rams. The Eagles would have to open a roster spot for Brandon Graham if he is to return. He's been practicing. It's probably going to be his last game of his career. So it would be awesome if it is in a Super Bowl and hopefully hoisting that Lombardi trophy.
No, 100%. He wants to play in this game. He's going to hopefully take that Ray Lewis route, like when he tore his tricep. They obviously play different positions. Brandon Graham has to be down the line versus Ray Lewis can be in coverage and make tackles. But he's going to try to do the best he can, because I truly think that he knows that this is it. So he's going to do all he can to play in his last game of the season. He's going to try and practice his butt off, do everything that he has to do to get cleared, and try and make it to that game in 8 days.
Yeah, we'll see. What's if you have a number one key against this Chiefs team to beat them, what is it?
So no doubt my number one key is, we talked about a little bit, it's just beating the blitz. You know that Spags is going to bring guys in Jalen's face, and he's going to want to make him make quick decisions and make bad decisions and turn the ball over. So it's kind of two things, not turn the ball over and beating the blitz. They kind of go hand in hand together, in my opinion. Not turning the ball over when trying to beat the blitz overall would be my number one key to winning this game right now. Hurts, as long as he doesn't make mistakes, finds his open guys, and it's big on the receivers this week if they're going to keep bringing blitz to get open on pass plays. But beating the blitz is a huge thing, because I think that's what they're going to majority bring against Hurts in 8 days, because it's a thing that he struggled with all season long, and we were talking about.
All right. Well, we will see what happens next week. We'll, of course, dive more into the Chiefs and the Eagles next week, Saturday, same time. But we need to thank SeatGeek because they're the best, of course, most efficient way and easiest to buy your tickets. At checkout on SeatGeek, use code Phillies Sports Report. You save $20 off your first SeatGeek purchase. Phillies Sports Report. $20 off your first SeatGeek purchase. Link is in the description or the bio to save those Super Bowl tickets. I'll tell you, they're pretty pricey. I'm not gonna. They're pretty expensive. So save $20 off your ticket with SeatGeek. All right, Sixers. Let's talk about them. They've been playing better as of late. They've won 4 of their last 5. Just came up short to the Nuggets last night. Wanted to get that one, but couldn't. And it's been fueled by Tyrese Maxey, who over his last 7 games has 37 points, 28 points, 29 points, 31 points, 40 points, 43 points, 30 points, and 42. He has 30 plus in his last, 4 games? He's insane. But he was not voted into the All-Star game after averaging 27 points, 3.5 rebounds, 6 assists per game, and 44% field goal percentage. Was Maxey robbed from the All-Star game?
I think 100% he was snubbed. Like, I don't know how. Maybe I'm being biased, and maybe it's because I'm a Philly fan, but man, that guy just goes out day and night and tries to do as much as he can. And he has honestly been the only guy that on this team that really, not the only guy on this team, the only guy that doesn't play or that wants to play night in, night out, that's considered a star. Because the other two, Paul George and Embiid has done great things for the city. Man, the other two just don't seem to want to get on the floor. I know George is hurt with his pinky or whatever right now that he hurt on the rim, but man, Max just goes out there night in, night out, and he wants to win so badly with whoever wants to go to battle with him. No matter if it's 4 guys from the G League, Maxey will go out there and do the best he can to score as much as he can. He's finally getting a whistle, which is a big thing in today's NBA, which is annoying that it takes a guy to being good to get a whistle. But Maxey, he's been overall so good, especially his last game. I don't know when they voted for these all-star spots from, I think, the media or the coach, or whoever decided other than the fans voted. But man, Maxey has been balling these last couple weeks. He has really shown that he is a premier player in this league. And it sucks that he is not able to get in this All-Star game. I hope he gets in as a replacement, but if not, he just takes time off and stay healthy. But it sucks that he was not named to this year's All-Star team.
I think the biggest reason he's not in the All-Star game, Matt, Sixers are 19 and 28.
Yeah.
I think that's really the biggest thing is, the team just isn't good. Like, they're playing better. They're getting, a lot of production from Gershon Yabusele and some other guys, but Kelly Oubre, but they're just like the record isn't really saying anything to me. And it's the same thing kind of with LaMelo Ball, who I think definitely should have gotten in, but the Charlotte Hornets are 12 and 33. And I think that's a big selling point. Like, if you're an all-star, you help your team win games. And the Sixers and Hornets are not winning games. And with that, LaMelo Ball and Tyrese Maxey are not in the all-star game.
No, yeah, that's probably a big reason why people don't want to put him in. But still, I think if the Lakers were 0 and 46, I still think LeBron and probably Anthony Davis too would be getting in the All-Star game. So as much as I hate getting that excuse, I still think he should have got in. That he has been such a huge factor for this team. He's been the only really shining point since Jared McCain went down, this whole team this year. But it's unfortunate that Maxey's not able to get to the All-Star game this year.
Jared McCain, the zesty hooper, with his friend from Target. All right,
that was funny.
The NBA trade deadline is quickly approaching. It is 5 days away. February 6th at 3:00 p.m. Eastern time is the deadline. Some names have been floating around for the Sixers. Gershon Yabusele has been the big one. Eric Gordon's been in there as well. What are you expecting at this deadline that the Sixers could do?
So I'm really thinking that they're either doing one of two things. They're either punting or they're standing stalemate. I don't think they're going to buy. I think at this point, they know what they have in this team. And if they really want to get some value for the guys that they have on expiring deals, they could definitely get some value. Gershon Yabusele. Yabusele is a really tough guy to trade because he has been the second best Sixer this entire year. He has given you such great value, especially as of late. Last night was one of the best games I've ever seen from him. He dropped, I think it was 28 points for him overall. he just was all over the floor last night, honestly, putting Jokic to work. And it was amazing to see that. But Yubasali, I really hope that if they do trade him, they get some true value for him, because I don't want to settle on like 2 seconds and like a future pick swap or whatever. I want some real value. I don't want to just trade him just to trade him. And I know you're losing him in a couple months, but he really likes it here. And I don't know if he really fully wants to get traded, but it's basically the sports world is a business first, then it's the sports world. And if they're going to find a trade that they feel suitable, they're going to trade him. But I just hope that they don't trade him just to trade him. I hope if they trade him, they get some true value out of him. Whether it's a first-round pick, I know those really don't matter now some of these days. You have teams like Boston, the Knicks, Denver, Timberwolves. I would not trade in the Boston or the Knicks just out of spite. But I just don't know if Yubasali is someone you want to trade if you're just not getting the true value that you really want. If you're just getting a couple seconds for him, no, most of those don't work out anyway. Eric Gordon, I could see a guy you expanding because everybody needs three-point shooting, and I think his value is so high right now. He's playing his best basketball. I don't know if he's really going to be playing the same basketball the rest of the year. Maybe he could, but I don't think a guy like that could. Another name flown out there is KJ Martin. I think they could maybe get off him for some salary. You know, he's making $7.5 million this year. You also want to give guys playing time. Another name I think they honestly should be looking to move is Andre Drummond. Andre Drummond is just sitting on this bench doing nothing. I don't know if he just doesn't want to play or is actually hurt, but whether he is or not, I think you can try and get some value for him because Adem Bona has been an outstanding center this year for the Sixers. I did not think much of him going into the year. I was heavily wrong. He's been a very good – he needs to develop more. He's a developmental piece that hopefully will get better as time goes, but you want to give him playing time. And I know you're short on centers right now. Centers are really a thing of the past anyway, you know, besides Embiid. No one, and like Jokic, there's not really any like centers in the NBA, but I think you need to give Bona some more run. And if you trade Drummond, that clears the way fully for him to get the run that he needs the rest of the season. Who knows when Embiid is coming back, but you can give Bona some solid minutes the rest of this year. So honestly, if you can get some value for Drummond, because I think he's only on a 1-year deal too, I think you should definitely do that.
All right. Well, we'll see what the Sixers do with February 6th. I'm sure we're going to talk about it next week. But Matt, I will talk to you soon. Go Birds.
Go Birds.
All right. Now we got to thank Foco. Thank you to Matt Brown for coming on. Let's talk about Foco. Real fans, it's the best gear. Foco makes legendary gear for the most legendary fans. Click the link in the description to save with Foco. All right. The Flyers made a trade this week involving Joel Farabee and Morgan Frost. They were sent to Calgary. This happened in the middle of a game this week. It was kind of strange. They went to Calgary. Flyers in return got 23-year-old Jacob Pelletier and Andrei Kuzmenko, who is a 28-year-old Russian forward, a 2025 second rounder and a 2028 seventh rounder from the Flames. That trade has been confirmed. Flyers now have 13 total picks in this upcoming draft, 4 in the second round. So that kind of maybe have been the big thing in this trade was, you know, the pick, and also Pelletier, who I'll talk about in a second. But here's my thing with Frost and Farabee. They're great. I loved having them around. At a time, it really felt like Farabee could have been the future of the Flyers. He was obviously a high pick a few years ago. Same with Morgan Frost. They needed to be the guys that the Flyers, they were guys the Flyers were depending on to develop into stars and become guys who they can rely on in the future. And they just never did. And it was time to move on. You know, Flyers, they couldn't develop. Flames are very well known for developing young talent, so you send them to Calgary and hope that they can develop into something. And, you know, Frost was coming off of a pretty solid year last year, I guess 2 years ago, but was okay last year. Farabee coming off a career year, but just both having down years. And, you know, they just never were developing into what the Flyers needed to be. Now, they get Jacob Pelletier, who is 23 years old. He's a winger, 4 goals, 7 assists for 11 points in 23 regular season games this year. He was a first rounder in 2019, 8 goals, 13 assists, and 21 points in 60 career games. He had hasn't been great in his NHL career just yet, but the Flyers hoping that maybe a change of scenery could help him out, and that's a big part of this trade. Meanwhile, Kuzmenko, 28-year-old Russian winger, he was great in his rookie season. He had 71 points with Vancouver. He's coming off a year, just 46 points between the Canucks and the Flames. Ever since his rookie season where he came over from Russia, he kind of fell off a little bit. But the big thing with Kuzmenko, he played with Matvei Michkov in Russia and in the KHL for SKA St. Petersburg. So now Michkov has a familiar guy with him. And, it's a familiar forward. Flyers don't have – he's the only Russian forward because Igor Zamula is a defenseman and Ivan Fedotov is a goaltender. And Alexei Kolosov, who just got called up, is also the goaltender. But Michkov didn't have a fellow forward who he could relate with and talk to. And now he's got Kuzmenko, who they know. They were teammates. So that's a big part of this trade. So you look back at it. Flyers lose two guys that never developed. They get a guy from Michkov. They get a young Pelletier who they hope to develop in 2 picks. Meanwhile, the Flames get some forward help. They get a centerman. Flames needed a center. Got the center. Now the Flyers need a center because they don't really have any centers. They got 2 wingers in this trade. For the Flyers, I graded a B. You get what you want. You get the picks. You stack up on the picks. You get another young guy, Pelletier, you hope you can develop, and you get a guy who will help Michkov. But you're losing 2 guys. You're losing Joel Farabee. You're losing Morgan Frost, who, were great here in Philadelphia for their time here. Well, not great, but they were good. They never developed into what they should have been. So it's a B trade. I'm fine with it. But, we don't know when they're going to join the team, which is also something like they're not at the facility yet. It sounds like Kuzmenko may not be here till the 4 Nations. I see what you get with Pelletier, but we'll see. Well, I like this trade. I don't love it because, I don't know. There's not much to love with this Flyers right now, but I like this trade for the future, which is what the Flyers need to be really focusing on. And this is a deal that seems like a rebuilding team would make. You got 2 guys that aren't going to be a part of your future. Flat out and simple. So you move on. The Flyers of the past, they probably would have, not have done anything and re-signed Morgan Frost. He was in the last year of his deal. Farabee still had a few years left in his deal, but they probably would have re-signed Morgan Frost and keep carrying on with the same thing that wasn't working. Briere is not doing that, which is good. That is encouraging to me. That's all I got today, fellas. And folks. Eagles are playing in the Super Bowl next week. Sixers have the deadline. And Flyers are doing things. So big week for Philadelphia sports. Phillies report for spring training soon. Union gets started soon. But there's no Philly sports on tonight. There's nothing on tonight, so enjoy your night. Maybe rewatch this show. And if you ever miss a live Philly Sports Hour, make sure to tune on. Well, it's always up on YouTube, Philly Sports, and wherever you find your podcasts. Again, we send our condolences and our thoughts and prayers to those who were affected in last night's horrific tragedy that occurred in Northeast Philadelphia. And I hope this hour was able to get your mind off of that and, focus on, think about Philadelphia sports. So we thank you all for watching and listening. We'll talk to you next week. Thank you.
Swing and a drive, left field. It's deep. It's gone. Yes! And it is gone. Yes! It is bedlam at the bank. Look at the doctor. Yes, he's got it. Here he comes. Way back to making his treatment slammed up. And the doctor made a sensational play. In front, the front, and they score! And Giroux got it.